Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer Dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
Oh, welcome everybody, and I'm always so appreciative of the effort that I know it takes to come here and take a day out of your life and possibly leave other people behind doing stuff for you maybe. So to anybody who's also supporting you to be here, I kind of offer thanks too. Before I kind of dive into the talk, there were two other things that I was thinking about. One is if you're not used to this, we have a small memorial altar at the back there. And the idea for that is that if there are people you want to remember, that you want to sort of bring to mind and send loving kindness to, they might be someone who's passed, or they might be people who you know are just struggling. So if you want to write a little card out and put it on there, then please do that. And at the end of the day, if you want to take your card home, then please do that. Otherwise, we usually take them and take care of them in a sort of thoughtful way. They don't just get torn up and put in the bin. We usually have a small ceremony with them so that they're honoured. And the other was that I'm kind of aware of sitting here with this thing on, and it's called a rakasu, and Josh and Julia also have one on, and it might be something that some of you haven't kind of seen or come across. So when we do the robe chant, vast is the robe of liberation, this is a kind of little micro version of the robe of liberation. It's a thing that we usually sew. It's part of a sewing practice. And I've heard two things about it. One is that the material was gathered, when Buddha first made one of his robes, he gathered the material from the corpses that had been burned on the ghats. So there were lots of little bits of fabric, and it was made up of small pieces of fabric. And the other, much more prosaic one, is that it's like the rice paddy fields. So those are the different. But if anybody wants to ask any questions about it over lunch, then please do. You can have a look and see what they're like. They're not kind of things that you can't touch, but they are part of practice in all sorts of ways. So I just wanted to say there, if you're not used to them, please ask us about them. And the talk that I wanted to give today is about what they're called koans or cases, and they're often little bits of dialogue between a student and a teacher. But in this case, it's a bit of dialogue between Buddha and a god. And it's case number 4 from the Book of Serenity. There are different versions of the koans, and this is from this one. And it felt really relevant to me as I was walking around this room that's been used as a place of worship, as a place of gathering, as a place of longing, as a place of community, connection, suffering, for I think 300 years. Is it 1724? 1728. So we're nearly on 300 years. This has been a gathering place for people to come here. And I'm really, as I walk around the floor, I'm sort of really feeling the footsteps of all the people who've sat here and imagining how utterly horrified they would be if we were here.
Probably not in the internet.
but not in the last century or so. But yeah, something about, a gathering with a woman teacher and no division and everybody welcome, and it's a very interesting shift for this place too, to have this. So the koan is when the world-honoured one, which is one of the names. Buddha has many names. It was one of the names. Was walking with his assembly, and over the Buddha's life, people gathered and gathered and gathered from all over to come and sit, because they recognised that he seemed to have something to offer. So by the time Buddha was older and teaching, there were many, many people kind of gathered in different places. So he was walking with his assembly, and he pointed to the ground with his hand, and he said, this place is good for building a temple. This place. And he just pointed to a somewhat random piece of ground. I don't think it was particularly special. I don't think it had great views. I don't think it was next to a motorway services. I think it was just this place for building a temple. And Indra, so when the Buddha was teaching, he was teaching at a time of transition from a culture that was immersed in Hinduism and in a pantheon, in many gods, goddesses, to this idea of a Buddha. So he was accompanied by Indra, and Indra is often seen as a 16-foot golden statue, a golden god. So Indra bent down and picked up a stalk of grass, just a single stalk, and he stuck it in the ground and said, "The temple has been built." That's it. That's all that's needed. The temple has been built. So this place, this exact place where you are, with whatever is around you, the temple is built. And I thought about that question we often have, is like, where do we start? Where do we start with our practice? How do we keep starting? Because actually, every time we sit down, we're kind of starting again. We can't ever start in the same place. We'll be different. The person who sat this morning is not the person who's going to be sitting this afternoon. Who's the person who's going home? Each with layers and layers and layers of experience. And David White has a beautiful poem, which I imagine many of you will know, which is called Start Close In. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first. Start with the first thing, close in. The step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To hear another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes an intimate, private ear that can really listen to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. And I think there's such an invitation in there to find your own voice. And Buddha, one of the things he's kind of supposedly said is, don't believe anything. Don't believe what someone else is saying. I'm going to give a talk. Don't believe a word of it. See what resonates for you, what lands for you, what answers your own intimate questions, your own intimate voice. So the Buddha said this would be a good place to build a temple, and a god answers with a blade of grass. Each time we sit, however, if you're like me, however depressingly familiar it can feel, with all the sort of, oh, hello this pain, or hello this worry, or hello this, or, I'm in the wrong place. It's like, what would it be like to think this place and no other place than this moment and this place is the right place to start from, not some other place. Catherine Thanos in The Truth of This Life says the thing about reality is that there's no later. There is no next moment when one is going to be enlightened, when one is going to understand non-being, where there's no outside, no second moment, only a series of infinite first moments arising as now. If you recognize this as the way the universe is, everything coming and going, not belonging to anyone, that's the universe of not self, a sense of space. This is the secret to Buddhist practice. There is no later. There's only a series of infinite moments of now. So every moment of starting is always exactly and precisely the right moment, because you haven't got another one. It's just this one, this moment. And there's a little section, it's attributed to Lao Tzu, but I've never been sure if that's exactly where it's from. No way of checking. It can't tell me. And it's always, we hope, someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one else has the answer. No other place will be better. And it has already turned out. This is it. This is how it's turning out, folks. This Saturday morning, sitting here in the cold with the sun shifting and the rain coming and feeling like you don't know what the heck's going on. This is how it's turning out. At the centre of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want. And there is no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from a window. Rather, abide at the centre of your being, for the more you leave it, the less you learn. Search your heart. Search right inside you, this only you that there can be here right now, and see that the way to do is to be. So I was thinking a lot about that, how I don't know if it's true as much for you as it's been for me. It's like, I really didn't, and quite often don't want that to be true. I don't want this moment to be exactly the right moment. I do want it to be different. I do want to feel less tired. I do want my knee to ache less. I do want my life to be a little simpler. I do want to have a pension. It's like there are a lot of things that I can sit with and think, this isn't the way I thought it was going to turn out. This isn't the way I thought life was going to look. And there's something about finding a space where this also encompasses all of that. So as we sit with this exactly as it is, we also sit with our disappointment, or our longing, or our yearning for things to be different, because they're part of this right now. And I heard Jo earlier when we were in the kitchen, and she said, I'm getting pretty good at accepting things, except when I'm not accepting things. And I said, maybe also that, if you can accept that you're not accepting things, that's all part of this kind of layers of how do we let ourselves be here exactly as we are right now. And some of you will know about the Lojong slogans, which are a series of very small, pithy, challenging little phrases. They're really interesting. And one of them is start with the preliminaries. Start with the preliminaries. And Judith Leaf, in her commentaries on it, says the constant need to recognise that preparing for launch, that preparing for starting is a constant practice. We don't prepare once. We prepare and we prepare and we start and we start and we start. And Flint often asks us, he says, some of us have been doing this for some time, and yet you can keep coming back to, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this thing? What am I doing it for? And sometimes we have it in that kind of a voice, don't we? Like, what the, good Lord. And then other times it's kind of like, can I come back to my intention? Why did I start doing this? What did I want? What did I think was going to happen? And how am I going to start? And so I was thinking this morning, I've been so fortunate to be part of a kind of setup crew for what I think of in my head as pop-up zendos. This is another little pop-up zendo. We made this room for this moment our little temple. We're here, we came together with intention. We had something that we wanted to bring and some reason for making the journey here. And there'll all be different reasons. Each of us will be sitting here with different reasons, but it's like, this is what we made today. And we're right here, we're right in it. We're right in our blade of grass. We're here in this moment of something that we've made. And I was thinking about, when I'm starting to prepare for a talk, I don't know how your minds work, but, mine goes off. It goes for a little sort of thing. It's like it's having a little wander. It wanders about, and it picks up a bit of this and it picks up a bit of that, and it's kind of like, and I have lots and lots of quotes from other people. I have a sort of vast resource of quotes and poems, and everybody seems to have said it better. And, if I'm not really careful, my talk is just other people's talks. And I have to if I can stay with it, then something starts happening which is kind of like, what do I want to say? What is wanting to be said right now? There's a kind of mixture. But I have to be really patient. I have to wait and let a lot of the sort of bubbling of subside, of like, what is it? What is it that I want to share? What is it? And I have no idea what you need to hear. I only know the things that I come forward that I find I'm wanting to say. So I have to stay really open and spacious, and I have to have no clue in some ways about where it's going to go. There's a kind of really mysterious unfolding. And I sometimes can let myself trust that. And then other times I'll be in a much more wobblier place about it. So for me, the invitation for us here today is to keep reminding ourselves why we're here. Why are you here? What do you want? And what do you have to offer? Because it's a mixture, isn't it? We come together to make a community. And in that we'll want something for ourselves, but for me it's also like, and what can we offer? What are we offering to each other in this space? We offer each other the stillness of sitting. We offer each other the breath that we're sharing. Every breath you're breathing in right now contains other people. They might not have meant to give it to you, but they did. We're breathing in the oxygen that the trees have offered. So it's a mixture of what do we want and what are we offering. And the idea of building a temple, that's a really fancy-dancy idea, isn't it? There's something about that kind of like, we might mean it thinks to create something permanent, something solid. You know, our country is full of places that have been built. You know, 300 years nearly of people coming to this particular place. You know, we have enormous cathedrals, we have churches, and we have places, we have Stonehenge. You know, we have, where I live in Lancashire, we have wells, we have sacred wells that people used to go round and dress and be part of the community. They were also land temples. So we can get kind of really caught, I think, in the idea of making something permanent. Maybe making a legacy, maybe making something that's going to come. But we study impermanence. And that's a huge part of what we study. So when we're building our temples, we're also making blades of grass which will die down in the winter and be cut or stood on or disappear. So we can have this sense of, can we make something right now? And can we also know that it's impermanent? It's not going to last. And again, Catherine Thanos says, but what's the real temple? What's the real temple? When we get down to brass tacks, it has to be a case of this very mind is the Zen hall. Each of us is a little walking temple, a little walking zendo. But what she means, she says, it's not the individual mind, but the mind of the entire universe. And part of our practice is finding ways to move in from this little, our small, contained, constrained mind, which is also the only way that we can know the mind of the universe. It's like that big perspective and small perspective, big perspective, small perspective. And we can keep moving in and out. The temple erected in our true mind will never crumble. The one is the many, and the many is the one, and wherever we are is heaven itself. Right now, imagine that your body, your mind, exactly at this moment is heaven itself. This is what heaven looks like. I think for most of us that's a deeply challenging idea, you know. I thought we were meant to feel fine. I thought we were meant to feel marvellous, euphoric in heaven. What if this feeling you've got at this moment is an exact expression of how things are? And at the end of the koan is after Indra has put down the blade of grass and said the temple is built, Buddha smiles. He doesn't say anything at all, he just smiles. It's like, that's it. There is no more to do. And there's another story. So Buddha said that he was one of many reincarnated Buddhas. We'll all have our own experience around the idea of gods and reincarnation and whatever. But the stories are pointing to something, I think. And he said when he was serving a previous Buddha, he laid down, he spread his hair to cover the mud so that the Buddha of the time could cross without soiling his feet. And then the Buddha of the time pointed to where the hair was spread and said a sanctuary should be built in this place. And at that time it was an elder, not a god, who came forward and planted a marker in that spot and said, the building of the sanctuary is finished. So this idea of here is the temple, here is the place of the sanctuary, and whatever we use and do in that moment makes the sanctuary. That's it. We use whatever is around us and in us in this moment to make the sanctuary. And the end of the commentary of that is a community for a day abides forever. A community for a day abides forever. And so I have this sense of like, we come together, we make this community. We might not even speak to some of the people in this group today. And people will have there'll be 16 different experiences happening today. But what we make today will also abide forever. Don't you like that? Don't you? Isn't that a nice thing to be part of? And we keep coming together. We come together in our meetings, we come together in our sanghas, we come together in our days. We make something that is a representation and an embodiment of what abides forever, which is the way, the eternal way. And then the other aspect of this that I kind of am really drawn to is about dust. Plants it in the dust. Just a very, very ordinary piece of ground. And one of the things that we say in our practice is about picking up a speck of dust. But actually, dust has every single thing in it. Every single thing. I once randomly heard a radio broadcast that stayed with me for years and years. And it was a scientist examining dust. And it was ordinary dust. It was just your dust bunny under a sofa. You know, it wasn't exotic dust. It was just really random, ordinary dust. And in this dust, there was sand from the time of the pyramids. There were little tiny pieces of diamond, and in the radio broadcast they said, big enough for a molecule to get engaged with. I just thought that was absolutely gorgeous. And bits of stars. Bits of stars in the dust. So dust contains everything. It contains time. And it contains everything that's ever kind of been. I'm very interested in, as some of you will know, land artists. People who make art from the land, from anything that's around them. There's one of our most famous English land artists is a guy called Andy Galsworthy. And one of his practices is that when it's snowing enough and it's cold enough, he goes out and he makes a snowball out of both the snow that's there and the earth that the snow is resting on. So he makes this ball of snow with earth in, and then he takes it back to his studio. It's one of the few pieces he does in his studio. And he gets a huge long piece of paper, maybe as long as this blue carpet, and he puts the big sort of snowball on, and it's on a very slight incline. And then he waits. And the snowball melts. And as it melts, it starts releasing all of the different pigments that have been in this earth, and it makes the most beautiful patterns down this piece of paper. And it's a kind of river of time. It's a river of place. It's like this now contains everything that was in this. Just these moments. And he said, someone said to him, you know, if you don't like where it's going, do you try and change the incline? And he was genuinely horrified. He was like, you know, I've done this, now the rest is up to it. You know, it's like, it's not for me to then play with what unfolds. And it was such an interesting, there's a whole little documentary of him watching this coming down and making this amazing pattern. And he says when he handles and places the rock, he senses how the rock contains everything that's ever passed, all of time, all of the places that it was made And there's something for me about, can we start seeing ourselves as this place that contains everything? Contains our own histories, contains the histories of our culture, contains the histories of the land that we've grown up on. We're like that little snowball melting, leaving a little trail of time and place. And there's another land artist called John Foreman, and you may have seen his work on Instagram, the current Dharma activities, and he rakes beautiful kind of mandala-y patterns into the sand. If you're interested, his Instagram's called Sculpt the World, and they're beautiful. Or he makes things just with the rocks and seaweed and stuff that's available. He only uses what's right there. And the patterns are beautiful, amazing, and he just does them in the time he's got while the tide is out. And then the tide is going to come back in and kind of completely obliterate it. And he was talking to someone for an interview, and he said, I think the practice of land art is really a pure form of letting go. I think it's good for people to get used to that idea. And so I was thinking of our practice is also this coming to something, making something with whatever is there, and then letting it go. At the end of the day, we return this room to how it looked. We leave no trace. We put everything back exactly where it was. We pack up all our things and we take them. We have to let go of this space. We have to allow it to be here fully now, and then to be gone. Tomorrow it won't look like this, just like tomorrow you won't look like this either. So what if building the temple is a form of letting go? To hold the paradox of we build and we let go, and we build and we let go. And we just build with whatever we've got right now, here in this body, here in this mind, here in these relationships, here in this time. And then we let it go. Sometimes really reluctantly. But there's something for me about that sense of starting with right now, with no clue of how it's going to go. In Zen practice, we often talk about this idea of no gaining idea. You know, what's it like to sit down without the idea of trying to get somewhere, trying to make something happen, trying to make ourselves different. And when we were talking with Flint about starting a sitting group, he said, you'll get nothing from it. It's a deeply encouraging comment. But I think he was kind of pointing to right from the beginning, is like, you're not going to do this and get some particular concretized thing. I have gained immeasurably from being part of sitting groups. You know, it's so enriched my own life. And hopefully a lot of the people that we've sat with. But the no-gaining idea is you build a temple knowing it's going to fall. You practice knowing you're still going to have your hokey old mind. You practice knowing that suffering is still going to come rocking along. You practice with no gaining idea of making it better forever. But allowing yourself to be in the moments where, did you notice the sun keeps coming in? And it's utterly exquisite, isn't it? It's like the light shifts, the people's hair looks absolutely glorious. You know, the light shines in and it's just beautiful. And that's sitting here with everything else that's here. Totally outside of our control. Sun comes in, goes away, the rain comes, shadows come back. Just sitting with everything that happens. And if we have binaries like temple and earth, built and not built, we're placing ourselves outside of life as it unfolds. We're trying to catch it in moments. We're trying to make it something, rather than being part of this never-ending existence, the flow of existence and cessation that we're all in. You know, the river of time that we all swim in all the time. Yamada's commentary said, who was commenting on one of the slogans, he said, Mount Sumeru contains a poppy seed. A poppy seed contains Mount Sumeru. I don't know if you know poppy seeds, they're tiny, tiny. It's like, here is this tiny thing that contains every single other thing. It's not, if we think that them as two separate things, it's not yet the real fact. The light bulb and the light are one. The light bulb and the light are one. The window and the sunshine are one. If we think of them as separate, we think of them, we're trying to separate the light from the light bulb, but they're actually there. The window and the light are not separate. The fact is, the light bulb is the light, and the light is the light bulb. The fact is that the window is the light, and the light outside is the light. They're not separate. We're not separate sitting here. So wherever we are is always going to be dead center of existence. We can't actually be anywhere else. We may feel it. We may feel separate and alone and marginal. And that's the feeling that we're carrying in the center of existence. And we keep thinking that we'll feel different when we feel part of everything. And we don't. we just stop for a while the delusion that we're separate. I think that's a real struggle for many of us. And we come back to that bit that always we hope someone else has the answer. Does anyone else do that? Is anyone else waiting to be saved? Is anyone else waiting to read the thing that's going to free them, see the thing that's going to free them, do the thing that's going to free them? Someone else is going to offer it. Trudy's going to give the talk. You know, like, all of us, we hope that someone else has the answer, and some other place than this place in your life is going to be better. And that's not to say there won't be moments in the future that are lovely. And, you know, some days my knee, will be a little more well-behaved. Some days somebody will be kind. It's not that there won't be sometimes that feel different. But it's not that there is some concrete other place that will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. This is our temple. It is already built. No one else has the answer, and no other place will be better. And it has already turned out. There were just two more bits of perspective, which one of the things about koans is that you're not really meant to be able to understand them. They're there to crack a space into mystery open. You know, they're there for us to keep playing with, keep turning round in our minds, you know, because there is no answer. There's just what unfolds in the moment. So these are just two that I wanted to leave you with, because I couldn't bear to quite not mention them. So in one of the commentaries from one of the early people about the particular case 4, one song says, repairs won't be easy. Of the temple, repairs won't be easy. And I was thinking, yeah, how do you mend the world? You know, we don't have it in us to... The grass can regrow, but we don't regrow it. We can't remake what's broken. And repairs won't be easy. How do we mend the world? And then there's another lovely verse which I just, given my somewhat arsey nature, really enjoyed, which was another verse and commentary. It says, mountains, rivers, God's green earth, spring sanguinaria, autumn moonlight, lightning flashes up the pines. Indra would have more quickly built the temple had he left the grass stalk where it was. So even a god could get it wrong. So I just like that. Yes, Indra would have more quickly built the temple had he left the grass stalk where it was. So you don't even have to move anything. So what I wanted to finish with, I think I'm just about right time, is a Mary Oliver poem. Because who can not finish with a Mary Oliver poem? The singular and cheerful life of any flower in anyone's garden, or in any still unowned field, if there are any, catches me by the heart, by its colour, by its obedience to the holiest of laws, to be alive until you're not. Those princes of everything green, the grasses, of which there are truly an uncountable company, each on its singular stem, striving to rise and ripen. What in the earth world is there not to be amazed by, and to be steadied by, and to cherish? Oh, my dear heart, my own dear heart, full of hesitations, questions, choice of directions. Look at the world. Behold the morning glory, the meanest flower, the ragwort, the thistle. Look at the grass.